Here we are again. This is Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. We're going to do a spiritual skip through of chapter 12. We've talked about it recently. And we're going to skip through it right quick. It said, then Jesus, 6 days before the Passover, came to Bethany. If you're not a seasoned Christian, or not a Christian that understands what the Passover was, you need to study that. To start studying the Passover, you'd have to go back into the Old Testament. And you'd have to go back to places in the Old Testament where it talked about the Passover. And get you a encyclopedia, get you a dictionary, Bible dictionary. Look up the word Passover and go to every place it was mentioned. It was celebrated, the Passover was celebrated by the non-conformed Jews. Those that hadn't conformed to Christianity, the Passover was always kept. It was a day of atonement where God spared the children of Israel from the death angel. You say, well, the death angel to kill the oldest one in Egypt. Yes, he did. He came to do that. But he also would have killed the oldest one in the children of Israel had they not had their blood on their doorpost, had they not sacrificed a lamb. And Jesus was the lamb. That was the picture back in the Old Testament in Egypt. It was the picture for the Jewish people, the chosen people of God, was the sacrificial lamb, Jesus Christ, coming and shedding his blood for the person that says, God, I am a sinner. Forgive me of my sin, come into my heart and save my soul. And you will be spared death forever. That means you will live in paradise with Jesus Christ forever. You will live in heaven, which will be a paradise. The paradise that's now will be taken up and moved into heaven in the heavenly days. And so, when Jesus says, come up hither, all of us who have said, I am a sinner, forgive me of my sin, come in my heart and save my soul, and believed it, and he did it, are going to be there, the great Passover. We are going to pass over death. We're going to pass over hell. We're not going to have to walk through hell even though we could. We're going to pass over hell and into the kingdom of God. We're going to pass over death and into the kingdom of God. That's the eternal death. This physical death's nothing. It's the eternal death that counts. To be separated from God forever. That's eternal death. And that's where the soul will go to hell and be in eternal death in hell. And I'm sure that there's not one of you that listens to this, whoever it is, whenever it is. If it should happen to be in the 1,000-year reign, and God uses this piece of film work during the 1,000-year reign, millennial reign, it's going to be the same. Jesus Christ is going to be the answer. Until the last day of this earth, Jesus Christ is going to be the answer. That means if you die and go to hell, you will view those passing over you going into heaven. You will not be blinded of any spiritual or good thing that happens when you get in hell. You will see all that you could have had by belief. Just believing. Just believing. If your father said to you when you're 16, 15, you keep a good record here. What I'm going to do is this car I've got right here, when you turn 18, I'm going to give it to you. going to be yours. You can have it. Free and clear. I'm going to write to sign the title over to you. It's going to be yours. Do you not think that the next 2 or 3 years of your life are going to be walking pretty close to what's exactly what your Father would like and what's right? Because He's offered you this great reward? That's kind of like Christianity. Jesus said, I have a reward for you. And that reward I'm going to give you in that day of reckoning. You will get those rewards. He said, I've even got some crowns. If you are a person who wins souls to the Lord, you can get a soul winner's crown. You're going to have one free gift crown. The first crown you get is a free gift. That's the gift of salvation. That's the crown of salvation Jesus gives you. When you say, God, I'm a sinner, forgive me of my sin, come in my heart, you get that crown of salvation. The next crowns are all crowns you can earn. There's 5 of them talked about in the Bible. A good steward. That means a good steward. Somebody who is a good steward. True steward. That means he works for a company, he doesn't embezzle. What does that mean? That means he's a Christian that doesn't dabble in worldly things. He's like a man working in a company that doesn't embezzle. A Christian that dabbles in worldly things is an embezzler. You've been delivered from those worldly things. What are the worldly things? Well, I don't know for you what they are, but I do know what they were for me. They were alcohol. They were cigarettes, smoking. Just think. If I entrusted you with $10 to do something worthy with that $10, and I came back and I said to you a week later, what'd you do with the $10? Well, you say, Brother Peter, do you know cigarettes are between $4.50 and $5.50 a pack now? I had to borrow 50 more cents from somebody to get 2 packs of cigarettes, and that $10 and that 50 cents got me 2 packs of cigarettes. You're an embezzler. You embezzled $10 from a man that gave it to you to do something for somebody else. And you spend it on yourself. We got churches full of people today that do this. They take God's money and do this with it. God's money. And embezzle it and use it different ways. Was smoking pleasure? You better believe for me it was. I thought it'd be the end of the world if I wouldn't smoke a cigarette. And I found out it was the end of the world when I finally got rid of them, and it was the beginning of the kingdom of God for me. As long as I was smoking them and I was in the world, I was being worldly. Spending God's money on smoking. Blowing smoke in his face, by the way. He showed me that. God showed me that. The last cigarette I ever lit, God showed me, hey son, you blow smoke in my face one more time, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. This for you and me is a separation line. I want to use you. I want to use you in the jail ministry up there. I want to use you driving a church bus. I want to use you being a Sunday school teacher. I want to use you being an evangelist. I want to use you being a soul winner. But I can't use you if you got that stinking thing hanging out of your mouth. If you got that stinking thing on your system, on your body, and in you, and doing that in front of everybody, not only that, spending the money you're supposed to put in the tithing envelope for such a thing. Well, I said, God, you know I can't afford to tithe. And he said, no, I can see why. No, you can't afford to tithe and do that too. So, look, let's get rid of the things out of our life that keep us down. Lazarus had leprosy. God delivered him from the leprosy. When I see that there was another Simon a leper was there at the house too, I see that there was one that was not healed yet, unless he was the leper that God healed earlier, Jesus healed earlier, and I didn't study that back out to see if it was the one that he had healed earlier. He had healed a leper. I need to search that out myself and go back to it. My mind fails me right now to come up with that. But I do know this. From the worldly point of view, there were 2 lepers in that house. And the world did not accept the fact that they were delivered from leprosy. They said, that can't be. And we're not going to go near them. Even if it is so, we won't go near them. There's a lot of people in churches today saying, hey, did you see who walked through the door? Huh? Did you see who walked through the door? He said he got saved. I don't believe it. Other people say, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. That heathen, he couldn't get saved. He couldn't do right. He's been too much of a heathen. In other words, his leprosy couldn't be healed. Hey, we have it. It's called hypocrisy. We have it in the church today. Hypocritical people who are hypocritical of somebody like myself who got saved. I had a next door neighbor. He used to tell me about several years after I was saved, he told me, I still got to bet you ain't going to make it. One day I was in the church, and there he was. I would have had a bet he wouldn't make it. And there he was. I believe he got saved. I never could get that out of him, but I believe he got saved. I believe his wife got saved. I know his daughter got saved, because she's in our church today. And so, yeah. You know, I was such a bad guy that people would have bet to the grave that I never would have changed. And so God changed me. Then said one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon, which should betray him, why was not this ointment sold for 100 pence? This he said not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief. Oh me. Oh me. Do you know every day since I've been saved, I've had to be delivered from some things. But after I got delivered, I have to be kept away from those same things. You have to be kept away from the same things you got delivered from. If you're idle. In the Old Testament, he talked about tearing down the idols, tearing down the groves, tearing down the idols, tearing down the idols, tearing down the idols. If your idol happens to be football, you're probably going to turn me off right now. But if you put football ahead of God, football is your God. If you put baseball ahead of God, baseball is your God. If you put wrestling ahead of God, wrestling is your God. Whatever you put before God, that is your God. And that's a dead God. There's no reward to the soul in the future for that. Ooh. Many of us Christians live so close to the edge we could fall off. I believe that work could be your God. I believe I fall into that category, that when I was young, a young Christian even, that I was a workaholic. And God tried to show me that work was not the answer. That doing what He would have me do would be the answer. Work was important, but it's not the answer. Was I a witness on the job? Yes, I won many people to the Lord on the job. I witnessed on the job. I lived a Christian life on the job. But you know, God could have made a whole different life for me had I surrendered into it at a younger age. I do believe this, that the permissive will of God can become the direct will of God for your life if you've missed it when you were young. So the direct will of God for your life right now is to do what you're doing. Keep doing it. Stay right with God. Grow in the Lord. Do what you can do. Study hard as you can study. Pray as much as you can pray. Be as much a Christian as you can be. Follow God as close as you can follow Him by His Word. Do what He would have you do on a daily basis. Get some good study helps. Study on a daily basis. Get to the place where, if possible, you could punch this here computer on. You might not believe this, but it's the truth. The only thing I know how to do, a man set this up for me. He showed me how to punch the button that says start, how to punch the button that says stop. And then I have to take it to him and he loads them up. Beyond this place, right here on this computer, I know nothing. Would I like to? Would I love to? At one time when I bought this computer, a person came and showed me what this computer could do. But you got to have enough up here about this computer to do what this computer can do, to tell it to do what you want it to do. I know what I'd love to tell it to do, but I can't tell it because I can't spell it. If you can't spell it, you can't tell it. I tried one time to get computer savvy. Found out that it burnt the brain up and it smoked the computer trying to do stuff that the computer couldn't understand, and finally it just blowed up. And I had to get a new brain put in it. And so I don't try to get out of my realm anymore. My realm's what it is, and that's what it is, and that's what I got to stay in, and I can't help anything else. I can't do any better. And I'm not getting smarter, I'm getting dumber. I'm getting as close to God as I've ever been, but that doesn't help my intellect or my ability to get in here. I went to a theology school and found out what I've been studying all along is theology. I just didn't know how to call it or what to call it. But when you use the word theology, that means that you correctly know where what you're saying comes from. You know the root of what you're saying, where it comes from. That's theology. If you're a theologian and your theology is all you talk about, how much you know about theology, then your theology is faulted, has fault in it. Because it's not the theological aspect that saves a person. It is what the theology is about that saves a person. You could be theologically sound about Jesus Christ coming and walking on this earth. But if you're not spiritually sound about why he did it and what he did it for, and that you can ask him to forgive you of your sin, come in your heart and save your soul and go to heaven when you die, then you're using the wrong theology. You could dissect this book from cover to cover and miss going to heaven. By the way, I have some books that are called theological books that if I followed what that man said, I would be way off in left field. I wouldn't make it to heaven. Because it's not a physical thing that gets you to heaven, it's a spiritual thing. Yet you have to physically admit it, but it's a spiritual thing you do. Okay, prediction. Jesus answered them, saying, the hour that the Son of Man should be glorified. Verse 24, verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall to the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. He's talking about me. I was a bad corn of wheat. God saved me. It fell to the ground and raised up a new grain of wheat. And I've been spreading those kernels ever since 1972. Everywhere I could spread them. That it be a new crop of new wheat. A proper crop of proper wheat. Verily, verily, I say unto you, a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. What is he saying? He's saying if you don't plant what you got, if you don't cultivate what you got, you won't have a crop. It's going to be amazing how many people are going to get to heaven with no fruit. Isn't it amazing that you plant one kernel of corn and one stalk comes up? Let's just say it's got 5 ears on it, and every one of those ears has 212 kernels of corn on it. Wow. 5 times 200 is 1,000. And 5 times 12 is what? 5 tens is 50. And 2 tens is 120. So look what you got in that corn. You do the math. He who loves his life shall lose it, and he who hates his life in this world shall keep it unto life eternal. I hated the fleshly life that I had. Getting drunk every day. Coming home in a drunken stupor. Falling down and passing out. Till the next morning, my wife would get me up. I'd get up and leave for work early. Work my 8 hours and get drunk. 4 hours out on a second job, drinking and working. Justifying myself that I could take the money that I worked on my second job and drink it. Take the money on the first job and give it to the wife, and justifying myself. I was a pretty good guy. I took care of my family. But I was a worthless human being. Worthless. Nothing but working and drunken. Working and drinking. Working and drinking. Working drunk every day. Just a worthless human being. And God saved me. He took a worthless human being and made him worth something in the eyes of God. I don't know why all my children don't follow the Lord the same way. I don't know why some of them feel like they can dabble in the world and do a few things spiritually through their life and be safe. But everybody is to his own. Everybody has to work his own salvation out with fear and trembling. But I have too much fear to dabble in the world in some ways. Been delivered from that. I have to be careful of that. But if it die, this grain of corn, it bringeth forth much fruit. This is the proclaiming of the very purpose of the death of Jesus Christ. That he went to the grave as that seed. And he has brought forth a multitude to go to heaven. The picture of the new city, Jerusalem, being 1,500 miles square. I know people who have dissected that and put figures down on paper, and they're astronomical figures. If a soul was put back into a body and it became a person, and that person was designated 2 square feet to stand in, how many square feet? If you had floors for 1,500 miles high, if you had floors 10 feet high, for 1,500 miles high, and every floor in that 1,500 mile square was full of people, how many people would it be? The number would be so astronomical that it would go around the world. But that's what God has planned. He has planned for a number of people to be there. He has planned for the fruit of his Son, Jesus Christ, dying and going to the cross and saving the souls of such a number that it would completely baffle the mind of a human being. It's only something God himself could calculate and know that he is going to have this innumerable, he's going to have an innumerable number of souls. And he has an innumerable number of angels. 10,000 times 10,000. And plus, so we do not know what God has in store for us. We can't comprehend it. We just can't comprehend it. We're not good enough to comprehend it. So I tell you this, the day's coming when we're going to meet God face to face. My question to you is, how are you living? Shall the prince of this world be cast out? And I, if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me. This he said, signifying that the death that he should die. And the people answered him, we have heard out of the law that Christ abideth forever. And how do you say the Son of Man must be lifted up? Who is the Son of Man? Then Jesus said unto them, yet a little while is the light with you. Walk while you have the light, lest darkness come upon you. For he who walks in darkness knoweth not where he goes. While you have the light, believe in the light, that you may be the children of light. Now we are the children of light. These things spake Jesus, and departed, and did hide himself from them. His last words to me, November 5th, 1972 at 3 o'clock in the morning. If you don't answer my call right now, I'm not going to call you again. I'm going to hide myself from you. You won't see me, know me, or hear me again. You will be sealed where you are till the day you die. The fear of the Lord came on me, and I said, God, forgive me. I'm a sinner. Come in my heart, save my soul. And got renewed that day. That was my new life came to me. A man pronounced dead. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.